Welcome to a presentation of Nexus Quality Suite, NQS. This talk will present the new Profiling and Quality Assurance Toolkit, NQS, developed and marketed by NexusDB. NexusDB is a company well known for its high-quality database engine and has been in business for over 13 years. In this talk, the various tools available in the NQS Toolkit will be discussed and their use illustrated in RAD Studio XE8. So what is Nexus Quality Suite? Nexus Quality Suite is a toolbox of profiling and QA tools for Delphi and C++ builder developers. Based on the very popular and award-winning Sleuth QA product developed by Per Larsen, NQS has been updated to run on all versions of Delphi and RAD Studio up to and including the latest version, XE8. This work has resulted in the currently very stable NQS version working seamlessly with Win32 projects. We are currently finalizing work on the Win64 release and expect to have most of the 64-bit tools available for beta testing in the next few weeks. From there, releases will follow for Android, Mac, and iOS in that order. So what do you actually get in the toolkit? Well, Nexus Quality Suite consists of the following profiling and quality assurance tools. Insider, which is a binary analysis tool. Line Timer, which is a source code line level profiler. Method Timer, a method level profiling tool, which by the way used to be called Stopwatch in the old Sleuth QA. Coverage Analyst, which is a unit test coverage analysis tool. And finally, Test Driver, which is a GUI script recorder and playback. Let us now look at each of these tools in turn. Firstly, Insider. Nexus Quality Suite Insider utilizes the strength of our custom-built, very low-level profiling engine. Insider traps memory and resource leaks, performs platform compliance checks, monitors for Win32 API usage 2 errors, and can even show you real-time graphs of resource consumption while your program is running. Since Insider knows about the leaks and bugs in Embarcadero and Microsoft compilers, it can automatically filter those out so that you can focus on any real problems lurking in your project. Nexus Quality Suite Line Timer lets you fine-tune your profiling work and drill down to individual lines of source code in your program. With the Line Timer, you can see actual time spent on any or all lines of source code in your projects. This allows you to pinpoint exactly which lines cost you the most execution time. It is an incredibly useful tool for optimizing those applications that you consider mature and ready for testing. Nexus Quality Suite Method Timer times your program at the routine level. You can choose to time all the methods routines in your program or just specific ones. The program's innovative key views displays commonly requested reports like the top 25 most called routines and the top 10 most time-consuming routines. You can use the predefined key views that come with Method Timer or build your own with the new Layout Designer. In addition, Nexus Quality Suite Method Timer makes it very easy to chart your optimization progress by automatically saving all past profiling sessions for easy side-by-side comparisons. In many instances, you'll use Method Timer to get a big picture look at where your program spends its time, and then transfer control to Line Timer for a more in-depth look at specific lines of code. To assist you further, you can easily move from Method Timer to Line Timer with just a simple mouse command. Now let's look at Coverage Analyst. Your code might work just fine, but hidden bugs lurking below the surface could cause access violations and other failures that we're all familiar with. Of course, Nexus Quality Suite Insider can find many of these problems for you, but only if your code is thoroughly exercised. Insider works by watching your program as it executes. If during your testing you don't execute every line in your entire project, it's possible that Quality Suite Insider won't find important problems that should be resolved. To address this specific need, Nexus Quality Suite includes the Coverage Analyst tool. Coverage Analyst can specifically identify the lines of source code that have been executed and those that have not. This allows you to look at those lines of code that were not executed and to devise appropriate testing procedures. Clearly, devising comprehensive test plans can be hard work. Rerunning your programs again and again can be tedious, error-prone, and really just isn't much fun. Test Driver addresses these common problems. With Nexus Quality Suite Test Driver, you can record your program interactions, that's both mouse and keyboard, and play them back in an automated fashion. Test Driver supports a project style development too, so you can logically link different recorded actions together for comprehensive test plans. In addition, the recordings can be exported as XML for easy editing and quick modifications. Now let's apply Nexus Quality Suite to a simple application. The actual application that we've chosen is actually the well-known graphical display of the Mandelbrot set, implemented in Delphi and easily found on the net. As you can see on the screenshot, we've downloaded this project and booted it up in RAD Studio. Although a simple application consisting of just 2 forms and a DPR file, it needs to perform a lot of calculations in the background, especially when it has to repaint the screen. Purely for demonstration, let's run the program now and see what exactly it does. So simply, it allows you to change some of the parameters in the calculations and then graphs the results, a fractal pattern, as you can see. The beauty about this is that we can zoom in on particular parts and look at more detail. Some of this is actually quite cute, actually, if you go in some detail, and it's really quite nice. However, as we can see the time taken when we actually zoom in, it can actually take a bit of time. It's not really what you'd call instantaneous. So it raises an interesting question. Can we optimize the code involved and reduce the time taken to redraw the image each time we select an area and zoom into it? So let's close the application off and profile the running of this application with the appropriate tools from within Nexus Quality Suite. Okay, as you can see, once you've installed Nexus Quality Suite into your development machine, you end up with the 5 tools added to the tools menu of the main menu of the IDE. These are easily located, as I can show you here, at the bottom of this particular drop-down menu option. So, returning to our application and our desire to profile it as executes, I recommend that you start with the method timer tool. This tool, as I've mentioned before, we go tools and you'll find it here, method timer, NQS method timer. This tool, as I've mentioned previously, reports on how much time is spent in each method of a running application. This allows you to see which methods are used the most at runtime. So we wish to start, need to just center this nicely, and excuse me, and we invoke this from there, and of course up it boots, and we can see we can pinpoint which methods. If we go into the routines button here on the side, this is actually one of the best buttons to use out of for all the tools in the toolkit. So if we have a look here, we can see that the objects contained in the project, there's a significant number of those, including those linked in from the runtime library. Now, we assume that we're not going to be interested in profiling methods outside of our own code, and thus we need to trim the list of methods to track down to just the ones that we are interested in. So as we can see, we're going to profile all of the methods within each of these objects, and we're really not interested in them. So the first step that we do here is we right mouse click, go to profile status, and you need to do a double take here. Disable the profile status for all, and then sometimes it can take a little time. There we are, we're done. We need to locate the forms or the objects for this project, and they're here, the main form and the globals. And if we highlight those, we now want to profile these, so we need to change that to profile, so profile status, and we enable the profile status for the selected. These are now selected and we can run with them. The profile is now turned on again. So now we run the program. Note that we do this from within the method timer XE, not from within the IDE. So we don't run from up here, we run from within the method timer screen. And that, of course, has a similar little run button, which of course is F9, but I don't want to confuse the system, so I'll click on my pretty little green button. Okay, now well, as soon as you click on that, the first time you do that, it'll ask if you want to save it and create a new project. That's a project in the context of method timer. We won't bother with that just for the purposes of demonstration. So what happens there, it does a little bit of background information, the background video, and up pops the program in as it starts running. Okay, now this time it's under the control of the method timer application as opposed to the IDE. So now if we zoom in a couple of times, we will exercise some of the code in the background in that event handler, and this enables us to generate. We just do it a couple of times, right? Make it nice and sweet. We go in, and as we go in, we can see that the number of calls down here has been increased. So this is the number of method calls that have been made by this running application as we profile it. So the data collected from this is now able to be accessed when we exit the application and we go back to method timer, and it generates this report up here, a profile report. It shows each method, the number of times the method is called, the net time spent in the method, and some other summary information. This report is conveniently sorted by default from the method that uses the most time, this one here, compute click, down to the method that's used least, which obviously is form close on this one here. Now, as we can see, the compute click method is where most of the runtime was spent. I mean, over 90%, 97% of the runtime was spent in that routine. Now, let us now look at that method as the most likely candidate for optimizing the program. Now, to that end, we can drill down into the source conveniently in all of the tools from NQS by just simply double-clicking on that highlighted element or that highlighted row. And that brings us down to this compute click. Now, as we scroll through here, we can see that actually it's a pretty long method. There seems to be a lot of calculation going on and a lot of work being done. So it's perhaps not surprising that most of the time has been spent in there when it's actually creating a new drilled down or zoomed in method. So to be certain though, we can't know that for certain though. Well, we need to know more information about what time is spent in which lines of the source code of this method. That is, we've identified the method where most of the time is spent by the program when running. So now let's go. Now, so in that respect, method timer has done its job. So now let's go to line timer. Now for line timer, we simply exit that. Again, we don't want to save this project. This is just for demonstration. Go back to the tools menu and come down to line timer. Now, when line timer first boots up, you'll see that it displays all of the modules in this project in this table here. Now, by default, line timer sets itself to only execute the main executable, which is down here, Mandelbrot, or Mandel.exe, I should say, has been set to analyze. So part of the hard work's done for you. I mean, we're not really interested in these other DLLs that have been linked in. Again, the routines button here is a very handy button. So we go to the routines and go to Mandel. And if we look here at we can see that the Mandel DPR has been set. We don't really need to set that, so we'll actually disable tracking for the DPR and we'll leave it turned on for the other two forms. And we'll start the program running. Again, we wish to run the program under line timer, not under the IDE. So we click the run button on line timer, goes through, does its execution, boots it up. Come on, take your time. There you go. There it is. Now, look here. Already on the status bar down here on the line timer main form, you can see that we've got 13 million hits. So it's done a fair bit of work. No wonder it was a little slow booting up. Of course, a lot of that is to do with the interaction between line timer and the XE itself as it executes. So now let's go in and let's zoom in a couple of times And as I was just stated before, because of the interaction and this number of hits, we can see that this is incredibly slow to refresh. Or rather, it's not so much a refresh, it's to do the calculations and display the new view. Okay, we'll go in a little bit more. That was only a small area. Still creates a lot of calculations. We come down now to our hits, and we've got, virtually 90 million hits. So that's a significant amount of data. That's good. So we should be able to get some good profiling for the actions that have just been done in this session. So we'll now close and exit the program, and of course we return to line timer and find a report has been generated. Now this report displays every line in the object of the method being profiled, of the method of the object being profiled, my apologies. Now again, the report has been sorted conveniently to display the line that used the most code at the top. As you can see, this is line 332. Line 332 had 36% of the total time that the program was being profiled was spent on that one line. There's some lines close by, 23, 25, 26, 27. Those 4 lines also appear to have a reasonable amount of time there spent in them. But if we open this a bit, we'll see something interesting, which is that the number of hits, there's not that many hits on this one line as opposed to the tens of millions of hits on these other lines. So that's interesting. Let's go in now and see where we should start looking for some opportunity to optimize the running of the system. Again, we can drill down by simply double-clicking on the line, which brings up our nice little window, and we can go in and, surprise, surprise, look at line 332. It is simply doing a direct pixel addressing by the code. That's not very smart, as we all know in our first year of coding. We don't do that. Clearly, we need to make use of scanline or maybe even a temporary in-memory bitmap and redraw the bitmap and assign it to the T image more efficiently. Clearly, this line here is chewing up a lot of system resources, even though, albeit not using many of the, not having many hits. It's just chewing up a lot of the juice. Okay, let's now however, there are these next 4 lines that are actually also interesting. If we go through these lines, well, we see, not surprisingly, that these are lines inside of a repeat until inside of another couple of loops. So 20 million hits per line. This is calculations. If you look at it carefully, there's not too much more we can do here, except perhaps on the x0 star x0 replaced with the square function, similarly with y0 star y0. Other than that, there doesn't seem to be much opportunity here. Interesting to note that they did use the square function down here, but not up here. Well, one wonders why that happened. Thus, as we can see, we're pretty much certain that if we go to line 332, this is where we should be focusing on optimizing our application. Okay, let us close off the line timer. And again, we're not going to save it. This is just a muck around demonstration that we're talking about here. So this has shown us how to use 2 of the tools in Nexus Quality Suite. That's being the line timer and method timer. And I actually find personally that use of these 2 together are very useful for profiling the running of applications and allowing me to focus on those parts of a project that can realize the greatest benefits from time spent on optimization. Okay, In terms of the example that I've provided here, that's probably what you would use Nexus for. But whilst I have the application open, let me show you Coverage Analyst and a bit of Insider as well. So just as I said, just for the purposes of illustration, let's have a look at Coverage Analyst. As before, we boot Coverage Analyst up. It brings up the project XE, and we move to the routines. For this, we might as well run all three, including the DPR. It doesn't hurt it. As I was stating before, Coverage Analyst tells you which lines have been used, have been hit, I should say, when you run during a profiling session, and which lines of source code are not. It presents the results in a color-coded format of the source, which allows you to easily identify the results. And it's very useful at checking, for instance, any test you perform, and are they touching the lines of code that they are supposed to. For example, how would you know if a test that's supposed to exercise every line of your source code actually does touch every line? Are you really sure? This is the tool that will help answer that question for you. So again, we will now go and run this with F9. No routines were selected. Whoa, I did a little naughty there. By default, it tracks nothing. So let's just run the whole lot. Let's just enable tracking for the main form, and let's run our program here. And again, we'll go in, we'll do a little bit of zooming here and there. We don't expect this to touch every line of code. We're just interested in those that it does. Again, we've got 153 million hits very quickly racked up there. So that should give us some decent profiling. So we will close this off, and out comes it. Now, what you can see here, the most important thing here is the coverage percentage. There's 44.77 lines of code. That's the 137 out of 306 lines of code in the main form that were hit. If we now want to go into that, what we have to do is open the source file, and because this is a new project, I'll have to add that to it, and we can look at it. So again, as mentioned, we have a color-coded interface. There's no hits on these lines because they're just declaration, as we all know. And as we go through, we come down to the main source and we find our lines of code. So again, where a line of code is executed, the number of hits to that line is displayed in this column here, and color coding tells you whether they're hit or not. So as we go through here, we'll find that these lines of codes have been hit, and these down here, this one was hit 260 times, which is not surprising given that it's 4 times it went through, and it did this 64 times. And so 256 hits on this line here, and so forth. This one down here hit 1800. Interestingly enough, reset Mandel, this particular procedure was not hit. Now that means that the actions that I performed whilst it was being profiled did not result in any of those lines of code being touched, and so on. And we can go down further and find more examples where lines of codes have been hit and lines that have not. Again, there's this nice bluey grey background to indicate lines of code that have not been hit during that profiling session. Okay, we'll close that off. As I said, that's very useful for when you are testing your program, unit test, regression test, whatever, and you want to know whether or not the appropriate lines or all the lines of code in various units were hit or not at a unit level. So closing this off and going back to the main program, we of course do not bother touching it because we're not interested with that, and we'll have a quick look at Insider. Now remember, as I mentioned at the beginning, the NQS Insider, this is the basic low-level routine of the entire toolkit. This is the one, as you can see here by its display. Let me just open this window up a little bit further for you. It contains a lot of low-level information about the executable. Obviously, this is just the DPR. There's nothing much in there. It's the main form that's got the majority of objects and methods in it. And if we go on to any of these, we can see down here, I'll go up a little higher so I can get something. Let me just get something a little bit higher, and we will scope, come down here, and the on about click. Oh, there's not much in there. But anyway, here's something that's got some explicit references from that current one out, and it's also got some useful information about dead code, etc. This particular one, also the complexity of the actual section or the code unit. Now, this particular, if you want to make use of Insider, you need to refer to the manual and to actually go through and basically throw yourself into it, and you'll actually end up getting some pretty useful information there. Probably for the more advanced user or more experienced programmer. As I said, myself, if you're profiling to speed up an application, I generally find that the two tools that are best for me to use are the line timer and method timer, and test driver too. I won't bother with test driver today. I mean, we can actually do that in another session. Okay, in this talk, I've discussed how easy it is to use 2 of the 5 tools from Nexus Quality Suite, the method timer and line timer, when profiling your applications to identify opportunities for optimization. I've also shown you briefly 2 other tools. Sadly, there's just not enough time available to demonstrate all of the features of each tool and discuss how these features and functionalities can be used for profiling and quality assurance in your RAD Studio projects. For further information, you're going to need to visit our website and download the Nexus Quality Suite manual, the help files, and the trial version. The PDF manual itself is over 300 pages long. The help files contain excellent explanations of the functionality of all the screens in all of the tools, and also contain little tidbits for getting you through and using the advanced features of each of the tools. Well, thank you for attending this presentation. As a modest reward, you can acquire the Nexus Quality Suite Toolkit under our Early Experience program, discounted by over 50% of the recommended retail price. During this Early Experience program, you'll not be charged for extra modules or new versions. How neat is that? Okay, thank you again for your time. All from the guys at Nexus. Bye.
So that was a great demo. I know there's never enough time in less than 30 minutes to show everything, but while people might be queuing up questions, I always like to chime in with a few questions myself. So the licensing is per developer, is that right, or is it for a computer or team?
We are licensing it per developer. We allow 2 installs per developer, but currently there's no crazy rigorous license checking in place. We rely on developers' honesty.
Okay, and the tools are for Windows right now. Is that for both VCL and FMX or FireMonkey? Sorry.
Yes, they should work equally well for both VCL and FireMonkey. Yeah, they don't work on Android, iOS, macOS OS X yet.
Okay. And on the test coverage tool, I know you were exercising the application. Can you combine test coverage with something like Test Insight or unit testing, or is it really meant for the user to interact with the application and have the coverage tool capture information?
We are working on some automation of that, so you will be able to run your unit tests with this and get a report out automatically, produced via a command line argument. So you can produce that during your build process.
Excellent. And you can produce reports, as you mentioned, right? So you can produce reports of all the results, or do you export the results to a file or a PDF, or is that just another file option?
Currently, you can export the data in a couple of formats, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, the command line options are something we are currently working on.
Okay.
That should be available in general soon.
And then I noticed if people go to the product page, I'll put this, I guess I'll put this in the chat window, the link to the product page, and people can find it there. At the bottom, there's a roadmap which talks about a few things that the team is working on. Would you like to just mention a few things that are, I think you sort of hinted a few things as they moved, as you move on to the future.
Yes, that's right. We're currently supporting Windows 32, and we are working on Windows 64 support, which we expect to start releasing, as Jeff mentioned, in stages soon.
Okay. And I see remote profiling.
So yeah, we have a few ideas of directions we want to take the product in. It also, of course, depends on what customers would like, what their needs are.
And then there's a couple of questions came in. What would you do about measuring a multi-tier application? Would you measure each part separately, the middle tier, the client side, the server side?
Yes, currently you would have to measure each separately, since you can only load one executable in our tool at a time. So you run each of them in separate profiling sessions.
Is there any kind of academic or university licensing available?
We do have a not-for-profit licensing currently, 60% off with the documentation of being a non-profit organization.
Okay, so they would just contact NexusDB?
So yes, just please contact our sales department at email sales@nexusdb.com, and we can answer any sales requests that might arise.
Okay, and then the trial, I think the link to the trial, let's see, where can I find that? Probably, I think it mentions it on the homepage. So there's the homepage under the Nexus Quality Suite. I'll get that link and put it somewhere. So also a trial. And what is special or different about the trial? It's a time period, or is it limited in some way?
Yes, there are limits on how many events you can log and things like that. I think it's actually specified on the trial download page what the limitations are.
I see. Views can't be edited. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
It gives you enough opportunity to see that it does what it's advertised to do, or it doesn't let you complete large tasks for free. That it doesn't.
What versions of Delphi could be profiled with the tools? And it's Delphi 5 and later, and C++ Builder 5 and later. Michael's asking, can these tools be used to profile a DLL? Per Liveson is saying yes, DLLs are fully supported. And then another question, you have your executable. What if your project also has some DLLs that you have the source code to? Can you run the tools against the executable and the DLLs that it uses?
Yes, you can. It will load all modules, and if you have the source for them, it will be timed as the main executable. You can see them in the list window under the project. There you see all the modules listed and the main executable. You can select them for include or exclude from profiling, etc. So they work just as the main executable.
You mentioned the special early experience program offer. How do people get that offer? Do they contact sales or someone else? Or is there a link?
The current pricing is the rebated price. If they contact sales, they can also get an even better special. So please contact sales if anybody interested, and we might be able to help you out.
And is there an email address? I guess the phone number might be on the website. Is it just sales@nexusdb.com or?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Sales@nexusdb.com. That's our email address. Please email us, and we'll be able to help you out.
Any last words, Eivind, for everyone and me?
Well, I hope you all had some found something interesting in here. I'd like to thank Embarcadero for showing off our presentation, and thank you all for participating.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much, and we'll see you again either on a skill sprint on Tuesday or the next Technology Partner Spotlight. We'll see you again next time. You're signed up for the series, so we'll see you next Thursday, I hope, and into the future. Take care, everyone. Bye.